Sorry, Chair.
Thanks, Polly.
I was answering you, but was muted, so apologies. We're now recording the meeting, so I'll retake this adherent if members would just give me a minute to do so. Councillor Allison, I see that you're here. Councillor Anderson is also here. Andy Harvey is here. Margaret Cowie, Councillor Cowie, you are here. Councillor Craig is here. Councillor Donnelly. I'm not seeing Councillor Donnelly. I'll check that later. Councillor Dorman is here. Councillor Razak is also here. Councillor Fagan is here. Councillor Hamilton is here, as is Councillor Harrow. Councillor Horsham is here. Councillor Hose, I see that you're also back in the meeting. John Mulligan is back in the meeting, as is Councillor Loudon. Councillor Mars. Councillor McAdams? Yes, I see that you're here. Councillor McCallan, I see that you're back at the meeting. Councillor Miller.
Yes, I'm here, Polly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nayland, I see that you're back. Councillor Nugent is also back. Councillor Zack's back. Councillor Scott, yes, you're back in the meeting. Councillor Walker.
Yes,
Councillor
I'm
Watson,
here.
thank you. Councillor Watson. Nope, I don't see Councillor Watson or Councillor. Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'll hand back to you.
Great, thank you very much, Pauline. Really should call it the register actually, rather than the sediment, given the context. But anyway, thank you. We're still on items for noting, everyone. So we're now moving on to item 10, which is on professional learning school leadership. So this is to provide an update on school leadership development during session 20 to 21. It begins on page 67 of your pack, and Carol is going to take us through this. Good morning properly, Carol. Thank you.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide members with an update on school leadership development during session 2021 and to advise the next steps to meet the drivers of the National Improvement Framework. So despite the difficulties represented with COVID, we still managed to make significant progress in this area. So section 3 provides background and a statement of our commitment to ensuring that we work in partnership around this area, including those with Education Scotland and the West Partnership, to ensure that all staff in our schools are supported to grow and develop as leaders, no matter what stage they are in their careers. So section 4 describes the leadership opportunities for aspiring, new and existing head teachers and gives some details of numbers undertaking these courses and qualifications. And this includes the Into Headship programme, the Towards Headship and the Excellence in Headship for existing head teachers. It also details additional supports and training opportunities for staff at this level through initiatives run by the West Partnership. And it also provides some details of the in-house training that we run as a council for our head teachers. And finally, around section 4, members should note that discussions are currently underway to develop a programme of bespoke support with regards to the development and training of aspiring and new head teachers within the Catholic sector. Section 5 details the legislative changes around head teacher recruitment, and members should note that it has been a requirement from August 2020 for new head teachers to hold the standard for headship, and that is acquired via the Into Headship programme as detailed previously in section 4. Section 6 outlines the new GTCS standards, and they describe teacher professionalism within Scotland. And members should note that training and support has been made available around this in order to support our head teachers to support their own staff in this regard. Sections 7 and 8 detail opportunities for both senior leaders in terms of master level training and also comprehensive training programme for newly qualified teachers. And further details of this training programme for newly qualified teachers can be found in Appendix 2, which is attached to the main report. Section 9 provides details around the professional update process, and Appendix 3 provides members with the new guidance and documentation that has been produced to support this. And finally, Section 10 outlines the next steps for our leadership programmes and to our continued commitment to ensuring that staff at all levels are equipped and supported to be the best they can be in whatever role they have. So there's a lot of additional information within the report, but if we refer back to Section 2, Chair, that committee is asked to approve the recommendations in Section 2, namely that the work being undertaken to implement legislation around the new standard for headship be noted, that the work being undertaken to provide and signpost professional learning opportunities for leaders at all levels be noted, and finally that the planned progress relating to the supporting leadership and professional review and development PRD and professional update PU taking place in all schools in line with the newly produced GTCS standards be noticed. Thank you, Chair, and apologies for all the acronyms and abbreviations contained within that report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. Do you like your abbreviations and acronyms in education, as always? Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this report for Carol? Councillor Harrow, please.
Thanks. Just a quick question. Are the numbers entering the head teacher recruitment enough to cover the expected number of those leaving or anticipated to leave?
Yes, we've got a very healthy uptake within South Lanarkshire Council, and having gone through myself personally, and I know all the other heads of service recently, a number of recruitment exercises, I would say that our numbers stack up very well. And not only that, and of course we're bound to say that the standard of those coming through internally within South Lanarkshire Council is of a very high standard in terms of recruiting new head teachers, and currently we don't report any issues around getting high quality replacements for the inevitable retirements, and mostly retirements or sometimes for other reasons, because people are moving on. So no, we're in a very healthy position, and long may that continue, because we need the best leaders for our schools.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm mute. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Carol, for that reply. If there's nothing further else, I'll be happy to note this report.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to next item for noting is item 11, and this is on the Enhanced Summer Programme, or the Sensational Summer Sessions, which took place this year. Begins on page 95 of your pack, and Lynn Sherry is going to go through this. Good morning, Lynn.
Morning, everyone. That is a bit of a tongue twister there.
Yes.
It's just to provide, I'm here today to provide an update on the delivery of South Lanarkshire's summer programme for 2021. Just in terms of background, just to go back a little bit in section 3 of the report, we came to the committee in June just to advise you that we were carrying on with what we called our sensational summer sessions, which are the activities that run through a number of our primary schools over the holidays, and that we had received additional funding from the Scottish Government, which was 882,000 to augment that programme and to enhance provision over the summer period. We came back in August to update on our 14 primary school side of things that had been happening over the summer, but we would report back again once we had all information in from all the other partners that helped deliver activities during the course of this summer, and that's what we're here to do today. So just a reminder, the main aim of this initiative was about helping improve the well-being of children, young people and their families who had been disproportionately affected as a result of the pandemic and might not otherwise have had access to activities and to wider support that was out there, and that they would get access to that during the school holidays, allowing them really to socialise, to reconnect with local communities, to play and essentially to have some fun. The enhanced provision allowed us to do two things. It allowed us to increase our sensational summer sessions and roll that out beyond the primary. So that moved out into the 12 to 17-year-olds, and we made use of the universal connection facilities. We were able to run more nighttime events and more weekend events suited to what some of the children were asking for. And the second aspect was, of course, that we enlisted the help of our voluntary sector partners that were out there in the local community as well. Probably section 4 is the main section where it gives you information about the programme itself. So as I've said, the 14 primary school activities that are based in primary schools, they ran between 10 and 2, Monday to Friday over the 6 weeks. They provided breakfast and lunch and a range of all different activities throughout the day to keep the children occupied. Within that little set itself, there was 789 children attended. 19% of them were identified as having additional support needs, which is a great increase from where we were in previous years. Section 4 and Section 4.2 and Section 4.3, make mention of how we have brought in our partners out there, and Appendix 2 has a list of the 76 partners that came with us and ran their own activities of a whole range of different activities were out there for young people to enjoy, and they delivered on 83 different types of projects over the summer holidays there. In terms of how many children and how many young people and adults that affected and what sort of target groups, you can see in paragraph 4.3 to 4.6 that in total there was just over 11,000 people impacted and took part in various activities that took place. That included children and young people and adults, because we did run activities. Parents who had children with the ASN came together in different groups. We had fun day Fridays for parents and families to come together. So 11,000 in total, 7,600 from our partners and 3,300 from SLC activities. And that broke down into just short of 9,000 children and young people involved and just more than 2,000 adults involved in the whole range of activities over the course of the summer. So it was a huge increase in the number of people who participated. And you'll see in table 1 of the report, there's a targeted group kind of listings there, because the Scottish Government had set criteria about who we were aiming these activities at, and that's listed there in table 1, and that includes children from low-income households, children with additional support needs, young carers, care experienced, children and young people as well. So there's a list that gives some evidence about who we targeted. 4.6 talks about the range of activities that were delivered, and there was a huge array of activities delivered. In total, there was something like 3,635 different activities took part over the summer, so something for absolutely everyone in there. And a special mention, I think, to South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture. We worked together with South Lanarkshire Council and our partners to have a look at purchasing some extra personalised support, if you like. So it was around swimming, it was around ice skating, outdoor learning activities, and some gym passes, which will allow some of our children and young people to maybe carry on some of the health and wellbeing activities they were involved in, and to continue that on and maybe have a legacy from that, which will have a long-standing benefit in terms of health and wellbeing. Section 4.7 and 4.8 mentions very briefly about the outcomes. You'll see in Appendix 3 of the report it's a very short list, but we had very, very positive comments from children and young people, from parents and also from staff. And some of that's listed there. And the outcomes achieved included improvements in confidence and self-esteem, in mental health and wellbeing, about social skills, and physical health and wellbeing as well. Few other things maybe to note: we were able to invest in some new equipment and enhance some of the existing resources we had. So we now have a better pool of resources that we can all share. Our partners and South Lanarkshire Education and others can draw on those resources if we are running any activities for any reason. In the future, we now have a more generous set of resources which are more interesting and dynamic for children and young people to be involved in. Probably one other thing that I'd like to make mention to is the success, I think, in the partnership working that we had between the council and our partners that were involved. I think we have strengthened that over the last kind of 3-4 months when we've been running preparing the sessions to take place over the summer, and then of course running the sessions. And I think that's something we would like to build on in the future should we get additional funding, and maybe this might become a permanent feature. I think that's one big strength. We have definitely solidified some of our working relationships with the third sector, which is a good thing to note. I think that's really a broad summary of where we are. Just to maybe come back to the beginning and to ask the committee to note this following: just the breadth and the scale of the delivery of the programme, the wider impacts for those that attended, and also recognition of the third sector support that we enlisted this time round for the 2021 programme. Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Lynn, for coming back with much more detail than we had previously. This was a fantastic report, and absolutely blown away by the scale of what happened last summer and the number of families, the young people that were involved. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Councillor Craig.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just to add my congratulations to all those people who took part in that, both the children and voluntary and council officers. You know, summer holidays can be a terrific time for children, especially after the pandemic. There was obviously some tragedies which happened over the summer, children just being too adventurous. So it's good to see controlled activities taking place. So that's all. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you. I've got Councillor Cowie and then Councillor Mars, please. Councillor Cowie.
Thanks, Chair. Just once again to say congratulations to everybody who delivered these activities. I went to quite a few myself and they were fabulous. But I've just got a wee question in point 4.8, the resource one. Could I get a wee bit of information about how the wider community can access the equipment that's been upgraded, like the portable five-a-side pitch, the climbing wall, the replaced BMX and skateboarding equipment? It doesn't say how it's going to be shared with the wider community or who's actually got access to it. So it was just on a wee personal level for community use. Could I get a bit more information on that? Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so that's something we can provide, Lynn. Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for that question, Councillor. I have Councillor Mars, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can't congratulate the staff involved with this enough. That the reach of the scheme was exceptional, and the numbers of young people involved absolutely mind-blowing, actually, across a large geographical area. And I'm well aware of the targeted nature of this and that good feedback that large numbers of young people that maybe wouldn't have been able to take part in activities such as this were able to be supported, and that very few young people that should have been targeted were not reached. I'm also really amazed and really again, we congratulate the staff on the future proofing of this, that the fact that investment has been made for equipment so that there is a future for this sort of activity, and also aware that the good partnership working with South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture mean that a number of ACE memberships and swim passes that extend throughout the year, and also pantomime places, so that whilst this is a summer provision, it has actually extended into other holiday periods and throughout the year, to have best value for those young people, and so that this is absolutely not a flash in a pan and something that can be built upon in the future. So yes, absolutely incredible for the staff involved, and massive benefit to our young people.
Thanks very much, Councillor. I absolutely agree with your points about the legacy and the amount of work it's taken to get us here. And I think some of the partnerships that have been strengthened are going to be really valuable for the future as well. Absolutely. Councillor Craig, is that just a legacy hands? Yeah, okay, thanks. Right, thank you very much, everyone, for your input in that. Are we happy to note this report?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, we're on to item 12 for noting. This is on youth employability and work-based learning. Begins on page 107, and Stuart Nicholson's going to take us through this. Hello, Stuart.
Thank you, Chair, and it's good afternoon to everybody. This report covers areas that by now will be rather familiar to committee, and we provide a regular update, and this is a regular progress update on youth employability, and also a bit of information on the response to the challenges presented by the pandemic. Section 3 of the paper reminds us of the different programmes offered, and Para 3.2 gives us an update on the school leavers destination rates for last year. Now, although they're slightly down in the year previous, that's not entirely unexpected. The result was still better relatively than the national trend, and we're now joint fourth in Scotland. Paras 3.3 and 3.4 go on to describe the need to review with our partners the delivery models as a result of the COVID restrictions. In section 4, we look at Aspire, and Para 4.3 notes that of the 216 of our most vulnerable leavers, 195 of those young people achieved positive destinations, with 346 people continuing to engage with the service and to be supported by that programme. 4.4 describes how some of the face-to-face activity had to be replaced and was replaced by online groups around wellbeing and groups with a careers focus, which we are also supported by local employers and businesses, as well as some personal development type activity. Section 5 talks about Aspire Works. Now that's a newer programme funded through the Young People's Guarantee, and which provides work placements and supports for young people who are maybe a wee bit more ready to enter employment. And it also serves as a helpful progression route from Aspire for those young people who might benefit from it too. Para 5.3 notes that the young people were involved in the development of the programme, and so far 81 young people have been involved and 15 have already moved on to employment. Section 6 is an update on Graduate, which is our college-based vocational learning programme and the biggest programme in terms of numbers that we deliver. It's one that you'd be very familiar with. Numbers were necessarily lower last year. We only had 500 places or so, and that's because of the COVID restrictions and in particular the impact of social distancing in colleges. We had 427 completions and a further 55 who completed the Leavers programmes. Now, Para 6.3 notes that numbers are back up for the current session, and we're now offering 925 places. And this year we've been able to include some level 5 foundation apprenticeships in construction. Para 6.6 and 6.7 give an indication of the range or the breadth of locations and the breadth of subjects that we offer. Section 7 of the report describes another addition this year. It's essentially a slightly pared down version of Graduate, which focuses primarily on work placements for young people who, in a pre-COVID world, might have left. And this has been provided as an opportunity to help them get a foot in the door, so to speak. Para 7.2 notes that South Lanarkshire Council, as one of the bigger employers in the area, is offering placements. So we've stepped up, and we're very grateful to colleagues in other resources and indeed South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture for their support for our young people in this endeavour. Section 8 goes on to give some detail around progress with the level 6 foundation apprenticeships. Those are delivered in consortium arrangements, as you know, with South Lanarkshire College and with the Glasgow colleges, and those programmes were hit particularly hard last year due to restrictions in terms of work placements. But despite those challenges, again, effective partnership working resulted in 71 out of 77 candidates at South Lanarkshire College being able to successfully complete, and Para 8.5 shows positive destinations for all of them. 8.7 shows the destinations for the 62 in the Glasgow group, and Paras 8.8 to 8.10 then look ahead to the current session, and you can see that just over 100 second year returners and over 220 new starts are in place across a range of subjects, as you can see in the tables we've provided. Para 9 notes that as ever we keep a close eye on our care experience leavers. There were 99 last session, and we report positive destinations for 50, 3 return to school, and a further 33 are continuing with support. The remaining group there are described as not yet ready for support, but we will still maintain an overview and we will be there when they are ready. Finally, in the appendices, you'll see we've provided a number of case studies for you across each of those programmes, giving a bit of flavour to the report. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I'll maybe point out a couple of highlights from my own perspective. Connor's story in Appendix 1 shows that when given a chance, young people who have struggled can shine, and they can impress to the extent that employers are willing to commit to them, and that's a really positive story. Siobhan's story is about challenging young people's perceptions of themselves and where they might go and what they might do. So Siobhan's story in Appendix 3 is about Graduate, opening doors not just in terms of access to experience, but also resulting in actual college places for a young person who might not otherwise have seen herself in such an environment following such a pathway. And finally, Kerry's story in Appendix 4, I think, is a super example of South Lanarkshire Council delivering on that notion that we've spoken about before of grow your own. a young person at risk of walking away got involved in a council-run project, and through her own participation and the work that she did there, she has now been employed by the council as a permanent member of staff doing a business skills modern apprenticeship in housing and tech. And I think those are 3 snapshots which really show that the work that we do, or the work that this service offers, really does make a difference on an individual level. Chair, I refer committee to the recommendation in section 2 and ask that the progress described be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this report? Councillor Allison.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Very full and good report, and it's pleasing to see that type of work being done. But what I'm going to ask about is the rural areas. I notice all the locations are Hamilton, East Kilbride, down into Glasgow, which aren't really accessible from the rural areas. Is there an uptake in the rural area, and what are we doing to support pupils from that area being able to access these programmes?
Thanks, Councillor Allison. It's a very good point. The short answer is yes, and we're able to support with travel, but we're also being able to provide some of the activity through hub-based activity in particularly in Clydesdale. So what we want to do is make the offer as wide as possible and engage with some of the local employers there as well. So it's not quite a bespoke model, but it's certainly certainly tailored to fit. And we're very conscious of the fact that it would be easy to drift into a bias in terms of the border with Glasgow. So hopefully that provides a bit of reassurance.
Thank you. Pleased to hear that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mars.
Just follow on from what Stuart said. I'm very well aware from my local area in rural Clydesdale that there are exceptionally high numbers of young people supported by staff and actually encouraged by staff to go forward for foundation apprenticeships. And apparently, I have it on good authority, there are about 50 young people at Lanarkshire Grammar that are picked up from school and supported to go to their apprenticeship. So there is absolutely support, which I'm really pleased to hear, and before and during the apprenticeships. So that's really good to hear.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you. Encourage anyone who's not had the chance to do so to take time to read over the case studies which Stuart referred to as well, really sort of detailing some fantastic work and commitment and the achievements of the young people who have been involved. And I know the names have been changed, but congratulations to all of the people who found success through engaging with the programmes as well. We've got no further comments or questions on this. Are we happy to note it? We'll move to the next item.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. Right, moving on to item 13, which is update the Education Resources Risk Register and Risk Control Plan. Begins on page 119, and Lynn Sherry is going to take us through it. Thanks, Lynn.
Okay, thank you again. The purpose of this report is to present an update on the risk register and the risk control actions for education resources. Just again, in terms of background, section 3, the purpose of the register is really to ensure that all resources, including education, we're fully aware of what our top risks are, and that we prioritise our risks, and that we seek to put controls in place in order to either eliminate or at least minimise the risk as far as we can. We use a council scoring mechanism, and we score twice. So we score first of all on what we call an inherent risk, which is as if you do nothing, and then on a residual risk after applying as many control factors as you possibly can. We report every year. The Central Risk Management Team annually reviews resources compliance with the risk register, and the outcome of the 2021 review identified that we'd achieved 100% compliance with the risks that were there, and that we had managed to mitigate them down to a level that was achievable in succeeding. Section 5, in terms of this year's risk registers, just to maybe highlight a few things in paragraph 5.5, the main changes. The global pandemic, obviously it is still, COVID-19 is still with us, and we are moving, although from management of that more into also having recovery as well. So you will see that the risks are littered with certain things connected with the continuation of the global pandemic, and also steps to aid recovery. The national expansion in early years was obviously delayed because of COVID, but we've worked to make sure that we have now met our deadlines for introducing 1140 hours of early years provision. And of course, the pupil-teacher ratio is one which we continue to watch. There's a financial penalty attached to that if you're not keeping track of the number of staff that you have in place and keeping that pupil-teacher ratio to the standard which is required. So they're the main ones, but the full appendix, one of the reports, shows all of the risks which we've identified either as very high or high risks, and we would keep particular focus on them. Paragraph 6, maybe just to point out, every year we work with insurance to look at the hotspots of things that have maybe come up in which we have lessons to learn to make sure they don't repeat themselves. Because of the pandemic, corporately that's been delayed slightly, and that will finish at the end of 2021. So we'll work and make sure there is nothing coming from that we need to be aware of and to take actions on. The other thing maybe to draw your eye to, you probably will have been fully aware of all the things that were happening around school excursions that were cancelled due to the COVID pandemic. And 6.3 describes how education had worked really well, and thanks go to resource and insurance colleagues about trying to have monies returned to all of our parents. So we had to work with the schools to try and work with the providers to return deposits, etc. that was there, and also work with our insurers to put insurance claims in for any money that we couldn't get back from the providers. But we were successful in that. It did take quite a while. There was a lot of work behind it, but we got there in the end. And it's also just a note in there that our insurer has advised that the same level of cover won't be available. So trips are something that will be coming back onto the scene as we move into next year. But we have to be mindful of being clear with parents this time round that there are financial risks associated with paying deposits, etc. this time round. But schools are working on making sure that that's clear with parents. Okay. Don't know if there's much else to say, maybe just to note that in terms of next steps, all resources have a risk management group, so we continue to meet on a quarterly basis. We continue to look at the very high and high risks and also the other ones that don't feature in this report. So we keep our eye on all of them to make sure that we are managing the risks, and also that if there's any risks arise during the year, that this document remains active and live and we can update it as we go. So really just to ask committee to note the contents of the report and the very high and high risk identifications that are in appendix of the report.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Any comments or questions on this? Are we happy to note?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lynn. Okay, finally, we have two related items. We have 14 and 15. This is on the West Partnership Regional Improvement Collaborative, or RIC. And we've got an evaluation of the improvement plan from 2020-2021. And then we have underneath that, we have the improvement plan as well for this session. Stuart, I wondered if you wanted to take both of those together and we could take questions at the end.
I'm happy to do that, Chair, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll try and keep it as succinct as I can. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm bringing up the rear today. So as the Chair has said, this is the first two related reports. The first one to inform committee of the evaluation of work undertaken by the West Partnership during session 2021, and that previous plan, the improvement plan behind that was presented to this committee in October 2020, and then the paper following will provide an overview of the plan for 21-22. So the full evaluation report, as the Chair has intimated, is attached, and it reports on the progress and the impact of the plan in relation to the areas shown in 4.2 of the report. So the COVID response, work around the attainment and the attainment gap, so work around positive destinations, and work under the headings of the key work streams, which are leadership, empowerment and improvement, curriculum, learning and teaching and assessment, and the collaborative learning networks. And despite COVID-19, 4.3 notes the very good progress that has been made in those areas. 4.4 notes the extent of the engagement achieved despite the circumstances faced. So colleagues participated in virtual learning networks, they participated in subject level activity in support of the SQA qualifications, in seminars on areas such as children's rights, inclusion and well-being, and also in curriculum events ranging from a maths conference to a child-centred play activity relating to the early years. It's worth noting that the RIC activities are about added value and additionality. It's for us to opt into the bits that relate to our own improvement plans rather than being tied to a more generic offer. Section 5, though, it goes on and describes West Online School. Now, that's been a very positive, a practical collaboration, providing 10-minute online mini lessons, resulting in 93,000 or so views, essentially lesson inserts across our West Partnership schools. Para 5.4 notes that the evaluation has been submitted both to Education Scotland and the Scottish Government, and we note too that the findings have helped to shape the plan for the year ahead. So the first part, I suppose, we'll take back to committee is to ask that the West Partnership's evaluation of that plan be noted, and then moving on from there is we would look at the improvement plan for session 21-22. And we note that follows on from an interim plan which was put in place and noted by committee in March in response to school closures, which at that time were ongoing. Section 4 indicates that the plan is attached as Appendix 1, and it sets out the key areas for collaboration across the region, across the 8 local authorities involved. Before talking about those individual areas, I'd want to highlight Paras 4.2 and 4.3, which emphasise that the plan is about giving us access to other local authorities where collaboration is beneficial to our own agenda. It's not a replacement for our own resource plan, which reflects our own local context here in South Lanarkshire. Paras 4.4 to 4.6 note that the plan's been developed following reflection and consultation, and that would include stakeholder engagement. The key areas for the session are wellbeing for learning, and again, curriculum learning, teaching and assessment, and leadership empowerment and improvement. As with the previous plan, those key areas are each led by 2 directors, with the evaluation and reporting activity also led by directors from within the partnership. So as I said earlier, the plan is attached as Appendix 1. It does set out the governance structure, the delivery model, and the processes in place for consultation and evaluation. Page 5 of the plan, which is a 173 of your pack, sets out the West Partnership vision, and page 15 of the plan, which is page 183 of your pack, helpfully summarises the plan on a page. So again, I'd refer committee to section 2 of the second report and ask that the West Partnership's Regional Improvement Plan for session 21-22 also be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for taking both of those together and for going through them both. Does anyone have any comments or questions on either of the items, 14 or 15? Oh, I don't think so. Are we happy to note?
Agreed, Chair.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stuart, for going through that. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. I don't have any items of emergency business, although I did want to note very briefly, if you have a spare 5 or 10 minutes this afternoon, I would thoroughly recommend checking out the climate emergency news from the newsroom if you haven't already. If you're not aware of this is our young people from across South Lanarkshire have been working with University of Glasgow to run a newsroom during the COP26 summit. They have been interviewing delegates from around the world. They've been writing think pieces, doing analysis, doing roundups of news and so on. So you can find them on Twitter and you can find them on climateemergency.news as well. So if you've got 5 minutes during your lunch break or later this afternoon, I would thoroughly recommend checking them out and supporting them. This has been a fantastic project so far. That is us. Thank you, everybody, for your time and all of your contributions today, and see you at some point, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.